Hey Emma,
What's up, Oliver?
earlier something happened that left me feeling a bit frustrated. Can I talk to you about it?
Sure, what happened?
When I was on the train, there was this person talking loudly on the phone. They seemed to have no intention of ending the call and just kept on talking. So, since the other passengers also looked annoyed, I gathered my courage and told them off.
Impressive, isn't it?
But I got snapped at and was bombarded with one-sided words. She spoke so fast that I couldn't even understand what she was saying. It didn't even feel like a conversation. I tried so hard to give her a heads up, but the result was terrible, so I'm in shock.
That's a disaster. It's tough that the other passengers didn't help.
So that's how it is. In these situations, I never know what to do in the end. What would you do, Emma?
I can relate to Oliver. I can only think of being cautious. I might be able to be careful with how I say things, but ultimately, it depends on the other person, so I think Oliver did well. Well, but ending with a commonplace conversation is not ideal, so how about discussing the possibility that these kinds of issues might disappear in the future?
They really?
Oliver, have you ever heard about the Ig Nobel Prize?
Ig Nobel Prize. Is that different from the Nobel Prize?
The Ig Nobel Prize is actually a parody of the Nobel Prize. Simply put, it's an award given for research that makes people laugh and then think. For example, studies that seriously investigate why banana peels are slippery have received this award.
Wow, so there's such an award. It feels like adults goofing around with all their might, which is quite amusing. But I wonder if such research roles are helpful.
It seems that, contrary to their seemingly trivial appearance, there's actually a lot of useful research out there. Take, for example, the study on the slipperiness of banana peels. It appears to be helpful for techniques to reduce friction in artificial joints. Then there's the study that seriously debated whether cats are liquid or not, based on their incredible flexibility. It seems to have been conducted as a sort of billboard to spark interest in fluid dynamics. In fact, just by reading this paper, you can gain a decent understanding of fluid dynamics.
Surprisingly, they're being researched for a serious reason, huh?
Yeah, it seems so. And more than anything, this kind of research can be easily understandable and interesting. It could be a trigger for getting people interested in science. Also, some of the research papers prioritize the readability and interesting aspects rather than the usual formal style. So it seems like they are recommended for beginners when they start reading research papers.
I always thought researchers had a serious image, but my impression might be changing.
Well, I think researchers who win the Ig Nobel Prize are quite eccentric. But it seems like many great researchers who make world-changing discoveries are full of humor. The Cortesian and the dilemma Oliver experienced on the train might benefit from a certain award-winning research.
I'm starting to feel curious about this. Please, tell me more in detail.
Got it. So this time, I'm going to explain about the invention that won the Ig Nobel Prize, called the speech jammer.
Speech jammer, it sounds like something that could be a secret gadget from Doraemon.
Well, it was invented by Japanese people, so it's highly likely that it was influenced by Doraemon. As the name suggests, the speech jammer disrupts speech, and it's not just limited to formal speeches, it affects anyone who's speaking.
Wow, how are you going to disrupt it?
I'm going to use auditory delay feedback effect to disrupt it.
Even if you say that, I still don't understand at all.
Let me explain it step by step. Humans basically process the words they hear automatically and then proceed to process the received information. The difficulty in concentrating while studying and listening to music is because of this. When listening to music with lyrics, our attention is automatically diverted to the lyrics, which hinders our concentration on studying.
I see. So words can actually hijack people's consciousness.
And even when we speak, the words we utter enter our ears and get processed. The words we speak reach our ears 0.1 seconds after we vocalize them. This is the basis on which the brain's information processing system is built. And it's crucial that it's based on this 0.1 second time frame. When you play back spoken words delayed by not just 0.1 seconds, but by a fraction of a second to someone, a slight confusion occurs in the brain, making it difficult to speak properly. This is called the auditory delay feedback effect.
So basically, if you hear the words I say with a slight delay in timing, I won't be able to speak as I intended, right?
That's right. And by using this auditory delay feedback effect, so the speech jammer is designed to stop people from speaking.
It's an interesting invention that utilizes the brain's mechanisms. but I wonder if it actually serves a practical purpose. I can't imagine the scenarios where it would be used.
At first glance, it may not seem very useful, but in reality, it's quite a practical tool. In fact, I'll systematically explain how it was useful in Oliver's experience on the train. The events on the train can be broadly categorized into 3 issues. The first one being the presence of a noisy person on the train, meaning the speaker's words forcibly entering the ears of those around them. The second thing is I tried to warn you, but it turned into a one-sided barrage and the conversation didn't go anywhere. The third time, it was spoken so quickly that I couldn't understand what was being said. In other words, the speaker's lack of skill makes it difficult to convey thoughts effectively. These can be divided into 3 problems.
Maybe that's true.
And the speech jammer has the potential to solve all of these. First, there was a noisy person on the first train, so it's the problem of the speaker's words forcibly entering the ears. But the speech jammer works through auditory delay feedback effect. You can actually force the speech to stop.
Indeed, that's true. But couldn't we just communicate verbally instead of relying on tools for reminders?
That's a legitimate question. Considering the second issue, where I probably warned them, but ended up being talked at without having a real conversation, I think you can see the usefulness of a speech jammer. Oliver took commendable action by mustering the courage to speak up. But as a result, the person on the phone became infuriated, and I think it ended up making things even noisier. In other words, even if you speak up, the chances of it going well are never particularly high. When you give verbal warnings, it can sometimes lead to hostility, so there's not much benefit for the person giving the warning.
You might be right.
As a result, people often get away with talking loudly on the phone. Well, as an alternative to just giving a warning, you can also use earplugs or headphones to block out the noise. But that won't be a fundamental solution.
Indeed, you're right.
In other words, verbal warnings pose a high psychological barrier, and the likelihood of peacefully resolving the situation is not necessarily high.
Verbal warnings, when you think about it, do have their rather strict aspects, don't they?
On the other hand, using a speech jammer to stop someone from talking could potentially resolve things more peacefully without anyone having to confront the issue directly.
I wonder why.
Always having a speech jammer on the train. There's a noisy person on the train. We could implement a speech jammer that automatically activates and stops them from talking. This way, no specific individual is targeted with hostility, and we can relatively peacefully bring the situation under control. Moreover, the speech jammer utilizes a method called auditory delay feedback effect, which can stop speech by leveraging the brain's mechanism, forcing the speaker to be quiet regardless of their will. So the success rate is quite high.
Well, that might be true, but the speech jammer needs to generate the same sound as the person speaking. So if someone already has a loud voice, and then the speech jammer creates an additional layer of sound, wouldn't the people around feel the speech jammer's noise is annoying?
No, there's no need to worry. The impressive thing about the speech jammer is its ability to deliver sound only to the person speaking.
Hey, that's possible.
It might feel like it's impossible intuitively, but the technology to direct sound to specific locations has already been commercialized. There are things called directional speakers that exist in the world. It can deliver sound selectively to a targeted area, making it inaudible elsewhere. In fact, directional speakers are used for audio guides in museums. When using regular speakers to play explanations for adjacent exhibits, the sounds interfere with each other, making it difficult to hear clearly. However, with directional speakers, sound can be delivered only to the person in front of it.
Wow, I didn't know such a handy thing existed. But how does it work to deliver sound only to the targeted area? Normally, we perceive sound spreading out, so it's really intriguing.
The principle of directional speakers can be quite a complex topic, so I'll give you a brief explanation. Actually, the sound emitted by directional speakers is ultrasonic waves.
Huh? Isn't ultrasonic supposed to be a sound that humans can't hear?
That's right. Ultrasonic waves have such a high frequency that, to put it in simple terms, the pitch is, and they can't be heard by the human ear. The fact that ultrasonic waves are inaudible to humans is the key point for directional speakers, which are designed to deliver sound to specific locations only. Directional speakers don't deliver ultrasonic waves to people. Instead, they use a phenomenon called the beating effect to transmit sound.
What does resonance mean?
Anyone who's ever tuned a guitar might get what I'm saying. When you play two sounds with close frequencies at the same time, you can hear an additional tone being created. Directional speakers emit ultrasonic waves through two speakers and create sounds at audible pitches through the phenomenon of beating. And we can control where this beating occurs by adjusting the speakers. This means that you can only hear the sound where the beating occurs. And in other places where it doesn't, the ultrasonic waves are inaudible to the human ear, so you hear nothing.
I see. So that's how directional speakers work.
We got a bit off track, so let's get back to the main point. A speech jammer uses directional speakers to make only loud talkers hear the sound, and it stops their speech by using the auditory delay feedback effect. Plus, since the sound from the speech jammer isn't heard by the people around, there's no worry about the talker's voice and the sound from the speech jammer overlapping and becoming doubly annoying.
Vasi. The speech jammer is indeed a remarkably well-made invention, considering its name.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, since the conversation has been going on for a while, let's summarize it. In Oliver's experience on the train, there are essentially three main issues. The speech jammer has the potential to address all of these problems. The first issue, the problem of having a noisy person on the train. In other words, the problem of the words of a person speaking forcibly entering the ears is due to the auditory delay feedback effect of the speech jammer. We can forcibly stop the chattering. The second issue, where I warned but ended up triggering anger, is by installing a speech jammer on the train, we can resolve issues relatively peacefully without generating hostility towards anyone specific.
Got it.
So, let's tackle the third issue, which is when someone's speaking too fast rattled on and it was hard to understand what they were saying. I'll explain how a speech jammer can contribute to solving this problem. This isn't something that will have an immediate effect, but it can be a little help in fundamentally resolving the issue. Research to scientifically improve speech is being conducted all over the world. One definition of a good speech is having an appropriate speaking speed. In fact, if the speech gets too fast, a prompt appears on the screen encouraging the speaker to slow down. There is a system that has been created for that.
It's quite an analog method, isn't it?
Well, the system's internals require eye to recognize speech speed, so it's more complex than it seems. Even with this system, it seems to contribute to the advancement of speech technology. It's quite useful in that regard. This method is indirect because it involves the person speaking reading the instructions displayed on the screen to improve their awareness. That's why the speech jammer directly influences by forcing the speaker to slow down their speech speed. When the speech becomes too fast, the speech jammer activates and forcibly stops the speed. This helps the speaker understand, on an intuitive level, that speaking too fast is not beneficial. It's a way to make them realize the importance of speaking at a moderate pace.
Wow, you can use it in that way too. It's called a speech jammer, but depending on how you use it, it can assist with speech as well, huh?
So, that's the idea. In summary, using a speech jammer can improve speaking abilities, so if we create learning opportunities to train with a speech jammer, it could potentially bring us closer to a society where discussions go more smoothly. There's a possibility that we could make progress towards a society where discussions go more smoothly.
I think I understand what you're trying to say. It would be great if Japan could effectively utilize this. An invention developed in Japan and become a country known for its eloquence.
Oh, I see.
Somehow, after hearing about it today, I think I've grown quite fond of the speech jammer. I think it's amazing that it's both entertaining and practical.
I agree with that too. Personally, I'd like to see the speech jammer actively used in political debates and such. When politicians engage in debates, they often prioritize expressing their own thoughts and end up interrupting the other party's words too frequently. Since it's truly important to have discussions, I hope the mechanism of the speech jammer, which kicks in when one interrupts too much, can be incorporated. Well, entrusting the control of the speech jammer to individuals might pose fairness issues, so I think it should be left to AI or similar entities, which might delay its practical application. But I believe it's still a matter for the future.
Certainly, that's true. But I suddenly thought that there might be concerns about the misuse of speech jammers. It would be unpleasant if something like interfering with the speech of someone giving a speech from a distant place were to happen.
It seems that there are indeed some concerns about that issue, so I think we need to proceed with caution when it comes to developing the laws. At its core, a speech jammer, if used correctly, can actually serve to protect free speech. It stops those battles over non-essential things like speaking too loudly or interrupting others to dominate the conversation. And it allows us to listen to even the softer voices. That's why it's valuable.
It's all about how you use things, right? Thank you, Emma. I've learned a lot again this time.
You're welcome. So, here's a summary for this time. The speech jammer is amusing, but it leads to some thought-provoking research. It's an invention that won the Ig Nobel Prize. The speech jammer delays your own voice for a few seconds, making it difficult to speak effectively. It's a machine that uses the auditory delay feedback effect to stop people from talking. The speech jammer can deliver sound to specific locations using directional speakers. It won't cause inconvenience to people around. Moreover, it can also be used for speech training, depending on how it's utilized.
Got it.
That's it for this time. I'm planning to keep sharing scientific knowledge on a whim just like this. So if you'd like, please come and visit again. Well then, thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.